ये सॉरी मेरे फोन पे है Assalamualaikum everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today here, and I'm so happy that you are here. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Kanwal Akhtar. Dr. Kanwal is a board certified internal medicine physician and a mindset coach. She has been practicing medicine for over 14 years and has also spent more than 5 years working in mental health and coaching. Her training includes NLP, IFS, EMDR, informed coaching, somatic therapy, neurodiversity, and psychiatric assisted psychotherapy through the Psychiatric Institute. She is also the founder of the Islamic Life Coach School, where she supports Muslim women, especially mothers of autistic children, in creating positive changes in their lives and help their children grow into more independent adults. She also hosts the Islamic Life Coach School podcast, which has more than 294 episodes. Beyond her professional work, Dr. Kanwal is a mother of three, loves to travel, and enjoys learning and teaching about personal growth and building confidence. What makes her work especially meaningful is the way she brings together her medical background, coaching experience, and Islamic values to support Muslim women in making meaningful and lasting changes in their lives. We are truly happy and grateful to have her with us today. So please join me in giving her a very warm welcome.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I think there's only two people here that I don't know by name. I think. Right? Yeah, mashallah. Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. That goes to tell you I know a lot of people. Alhamdulillah. So thank you so much for MIC for hosting me, for allowing me this day, allowing us an opportunity to get together in the house of Allah. So you might come to notice in any of that introduction, it didn't include any Islamic scholarship. And I don't take, of course, any credit for that because I don't have any traditional Islamic training. But my journey to mental health was related to my own burnout after becoming an attending physician for 2 years. I was very burnt out. I had a lot of help from my family, from my husband's family, and I was burning the candle for both ends. And I was like, this can't continue. If I continue like this, this is not sustainable. And I've worked so hard for this. So what's the answer? So I tried different modalities. I tried therapy that was a little helpful. And then I tried different coaching modalities, different self-help modalities. And then I finally came to this modality that was absolutely life-changing for me. And I decided to certify in it. And then I decided to create more of my own intellectual property based on that and to integrate Islamic psychology. So, of course, Islamic psychology is sort of a catch-all term right now, but it also integrates very, very practically into what I teach, especially what I teach women. So today's topic is parenting with compassion. And it might sound like it's a constant, gentle parenting. It might sound like there's no need for firm boundaries and stuff like that. And that's actually not what it is. So a lot of times gentle parenting is confused with permissive parenting, is confused with compassionate parenting. And I'm going to give you a context that's going to be different. So for mothers or soon to be mothers or are still very young, don't want to be thinking about mothers, this is going to apply for everyone. Okay, inshallah. So what I want is to kind of start talking about it. What do you think as mothers, what are your challenges currently with your kids? Anybody? Nutrition? Like they don't eat healthy? Yeah, they're like eating all junk food. Communication. time management, executive functioning. If they have a health diagnosis, basic hygiene, a lot of times waking up for fajr, like following religious values. What about like keeping good company and dressing modestly? And a lot of times kids also go into aggressive behavior or a lot of passive behavior, which is the people-pleasing behavior. So how do we direct them into what, as adults, as somebody who's experienced life and know a little bit better than them, not a lot, whole lot better, a little bit better than them, how do we guide them and how do we allow them that enough independence that they could be their own beings, exploring and be exploring within the safe bounds. So what comes to mind is a human being is formed on a primordial self, which is the fitrah, right? We all know that we have one essence, one true essence, which is our ruh, which is our one true identity. And I'll tell you evidence for that. The evidence for that is the ruh is the soul. I know they're not interchangeable, but for the purpose of this lecture, I'm going to say they're interchangeable. The soul witnessed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and it said, Alastu bi rabbikum? And all the soul witnessed, Bala Shahidna, that we are witnessed that, yes, you are our Rabb. That soul is, our souls, the ones that are in our bodies right now, witness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are going through this journey of this world and is gonna go forward to after the day of judgment and beyond. That is one evidence for you to know that that's your one true identity. So then if the soul is so pure, then why are we struggling? If the soul is so pure, then why are our children struggling? Why can't we parent perfectly? Then comes these other forces, that is the nafs, which is, for all of us, is an identity that is related to this earth. My name is Dr. Kanwal Akhtar. That is an identity that my nafs created. It's not necessarily a bad identity, it's not necessarily a good identity. If I wasn't here lecturing you, you would have no need to know that I'm a physician. If I was ordering food at a restaurant, there's no need for that identity to come forward. We identify with these nafsi identities the way it suits us. And that is a tool that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. This nafs is downward projecting. It's going to ground us. It's going to relate us to the world as it is now. Another promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made in the Quran and has to do with shaitan, meaning Iblis said after he refused to bow to Adam alayhi salam, he said, so I'm going to tell you exactly because ayahs in Surah Al-Araf. After he refused to bow to Adam alayhi salam, Iblis was cast out but demanded to be kept alive until mankind is resurrected. And Shaitan said, reprieve me until the day they are resurrected. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you are reprieved. And so it's the same surah, ayah 16. Shaitan said, because you have put me in error, I will surely sit in and wait for them on your straight path. Then I will come to them from before and them and from behind them and on their right, on their left, and you will not find most of them grateful to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, get out of this, despised and expelled. Whoever of them follows you, I will surely fill hell with you altogether. In Surah Az-Zukhruf, there's more evidence for this. And whoever is blinded from the remembrance of the Most Merciful, we appoint for him a devil, and he is to him a companion. So this is what I want you guys to notice. We have this nafsi quality that gives us an identity as it relates to this world that we're going to leave behind when we die. Our soul continues that journey, which I told you, just keep in mind that's our one true identity. So if that nafs is temporary, Shaitan makes that a seat. Shaitan makes that an anchor for us to be led astray because that has some desire-related qualities, desire for the opposite gender, desire for food, desire for third, desire for earthly related matters. And none of these, of course, are harmful or sinful inherently. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us this religion for us to stay within the limits that he allows. So then the nafs itself doesn't do as much harm as shaitan does. Okay, so then comes the question, why don't we know more about this? Why aren't we like investigating this more? How come nobody talks about this? This for Islamic psychology, this should be like the foundation. And I found this to be such a major gap. And so I've been coaching based on this modality for years, and it helps every single person immensely. And I'm bringing this out to you because it's a very important, it's a very foundational tool that you guys can take out from here, and you're going to notice that it's going to be different the way you live your life, inshallah, from now on. So based on this, we have two types of intelligences in our mind, okay? So of course, everything's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the forces that influence our thoughts, that influence our relationships, that influence our daily interactions, there are four of them: the angels and the ruh and nafs and the shaitan, right? The two categories, the bad and the good. Like if you really want to be black and white about it, which nothing is of course that black and white, but if you really want to just simplify it, let's just think about it like this. So we're gonna, even further for the purposes of this lecture, we're gonna identify that we have two forces on our thoughts constantly, which is one is our soulful intelligence, our inner primordial wisdom, which has all of the intelligence that we're all ever gonna need to live the exact life that we have currently in this world. And we have these nafsi qualities that shaitan feeds on, and then it feeds us different waswas, different intrusive thoughts, different negative thoughts, which again, they might not look negative on face value, but that's what it sounds like. So what I want us to be invited to is, we study years studying child development. We spend years taking personality tests and aptitude tests and this test and that test, and all of these have value, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us that this entity is a part of our life and is very much active during our life. So why aren't we like, let's pay attention to it? So my invite to you is, it's probably not something that you've seen before, but I'm gonna put this up, and you guys are welcome to snap this with your phones, because this is basically a quiz, okay? This is gonna take you to a personality test, but it's not yours. It's the personality test of the Qareen.
Can I take this and pass it on?
Yeah, of course. And I think it'll be easier because because people will just zoom in, and I'm gonna stay very still for the time being. And I want everyone in the audience to at least attempt it. And I'm gonna review all of that with you, what that is, and you got it. Keep it up.
Yeah. I got it. Thank you.
Everyone got it? I'm gonna hold it still. Does anybody need help from Gen Alpha?
Yeah.
You got it. Okay. Okay, so the reason I wanted you to have this resource as well is because you're gonna be able to reference this even after, okay? So this is a aptitude assessment, personality assessment of this Jinn Qareen, that I'm not giving it more life than it is. We're not diving into black magic. We're not going into the Jinn world. We're not doing any of that. We're just recognizing what is this entity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us that ruins our life. Like, why aren't we becoming more aware of it? Because awareness leads to protection. Awareness leads to you blocking the flow of those thoughts through you. And what does that exactly look like? Okay. So you're welcome to take the quiz, but I'm going to explain to you what these are, okay? So this, again, keeping in mind, a lot of it is going to sound like this is what I am. Like, this is my personality. But this, if it's creating a huge negative effect in your life, or even a little bit, then the chances are that it's from the Qareen. Okay, so to help us recognize, there's 12 of its personality traits. Number 1 is escapist. This is the trait that makes you believe that avoiding discomfort will bring peace. This is when you avoid having difficult conversations. This is when you avoid having any kind of conflict, even though if it's healthy conflict. This is when you sort of like ostrich under the head in the sand, will kind of bury yourself and pretend nothing is wrong, and just kind of, when things are really in your relationships just festering and becoming even worse than you think, compared to if you just confronted it and dealt with it respectfully with your intelligence. Then there's the alarmist trait. This trait of the Qareen makes you constantly worry about the future that doesn't come. This is basically the anxiety feelings that you're having. This is where you're constantly hypervigilant. Like when you have little children, but you are not really at peace, even though they know that they're sleeping in the next door. You're either worried about their future. Okay, so this is your alarmist Qareen trait. Then there's the hedonistic, which alhamdulillah, that's not the majority of the trait that I see, at least in our population. This basically is you escaping with haram means, like anything that alters your mind, drugs, alcohol, immediate gratification, anything that is a major sin. And while, of course, we know in the Muslim nation that exists, and that's one of the ways that shaitan influences you to call towards that. If your shaitan has that personality trait as a strong trait, then that's what you're gonna go towards. Then there's the anti-hedonistic, and that's actually very, very common, especially among Muslim women. And that what that is that as soon as there's a hint of any kind of anxiety, discomfort, disconnect, any kind of difficult emotion, then you're over cleaning, then you're over shopping, then you are over socializing. Anything that you do beyond what's healthy for you, and you're having a negative effect because your studies are being neglected, your religion's being neglected, your relationships, yourself, mental health is being neglected, that's because of this trait of shaitan that's inside. Then there's the conformist. This also is extremely common on, and I'm recovering from this trait at least. Conformist is your people pleasing. This is when you are taking responsibility for other people's emotions. This is when you are very uncomfortable when you say something and the other person becomes upset because of that. You taking responsibility for their emotions, so you continue to do more. You continue to placate the situation. You don't consider yourself, but because of this trait of shaitan, you're constantly appeasing and people pleasing. Okay, again, not your trait, shaitan's trait. Then there's the analytical. In the current world, anybody that's going through the education system, analytical part of their shaitan is extremely strong, because this is basically what otherwise they call as a left brain dominant, the logical brain, the sequential thinking, the 1 + 1 = 2, which in relationships, that doesn't work. That is an incredible capacity of our soulful intelligence to learn and to know and to reason. At the same time, this does not help you in your relationships. Emotional language helps you in your relationships. Then there is the helpless, which is the classic victim mentality, which means that you are becoming very just boxed in to whatever circumstances. Maybe it was a difficult circumstance of your childhood. Maybe it's a current diagnosis that you're dealing with. Maybe it's divorce, or maybe it's a prospect of you're single for a long time, you can't find a spouse. You becoming the victim of that and making the world mean that this somehow the world is rigged against you, not you. Your primordial inherent intelligence does not do or say anything that's against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command. It is constantly in obedience of him, and it is constantly connected to Allah. The point of this nafsi qualities and this shaitan is that that intelligence gets veiled over. It gets hidden, especially through the effects that we go through in the world. Trauma, abuse, difficult marriages, poverty, immigration, natural disaster, any difficulty that you go through that veils over your inner intelligence that you have, when you constantly have that intelligence to help you circumvent those circumstances. So the next one is overzealous, where it's kind of like a workaholic personality, where you're constantly just working to subdue any kind of negative effects in your life. Then there's the dictator, which is a controller, which happens a lot for mothers, because you think you can control your children, but you can't control them. You can influence them, you can guide them, but you can't control them. Even like if you try to strap in a 2-year-old in a car seat, like if they're throwing a tantrum, they're throwing a tantrum. You can manhandle them, but there's going to be a time when you can't even do that. So the control at least when it relates to this world, to our relationships, is an illusion. And this Qareen's trait is what helps, it kind of creates this, helps you create this illusion to live in, where you manipulate all of these different areas in your life to see if you can control the people, and you can't, okay? So the next one is perfectionist, again, very common, which is if something is not flawless, it can't be finished. It can't be called finished. And perfection, as we know, only belongs to Allah. The way Shaitan tells us that we have to sort of appear perfect is it keeps us from performing anything. If you are trying to be a perfectionist with a work project, if you're trying to be a perfectionist with your dinner menu, like you are grinding yourself to the ground and yet not happy with the results because there's perfectionist tendency of the Qareen. What it does is when you're accomplished what you thought would be perfection, it moves the goalpost further. It says, oh no, you're not done. Like now you need 3 more desserts, and you need to add 2 more paragraphs to that assignment. Now you perfectionist tendencies. These are, so there is, every single thing that I'm describing to you relates to your parenting qualities, which is why I am kind of laying this foundation. And every single thing that I'm describing to you has an opposing soulful intelligence strength that helps you understand life better and helps you live the life with a sense of well-being. So let's say it is that you love to host, but you are completely spent every time because you're cooking a dish after dish, and you're not setting limits on how many people are coming, or you are under the perfectionist tendencies of the Qareen. If you come out tired, if you come out very it's agitated and it's coming out sideways on your family, like you're irritated and you're like reactive to your husband or to your parents or to your children because you don't know why you're so anxious and you don't know why all of this is happening. That's because of that. The soulful intelligence quality of that is having an inherent quality of high standards. If you want to put out very put together meal, and if you want to work hard, please, by all means, if your value is to host, please cook 10 dishes, but also remember that you might be tired and some things might not go exactly as you expected, and you are still allowed to call it that you delivered to your high standards. Same thing with projects, same thing with your parenting, same thing with all of this. So whatever I'm describing, there is an opposite quality of your soulful intelligence in there. Then there's the egotistic, which is more of a narcissistic personality that we see these days, where there's arrogance, there's the preference of the self over others, and there's like there's a self sort of basically arrogance, okay? And again, the soul that is your one true identity does not do that. Shaitan does that. And then there's the impulsive, which is the classic shiny object syndrome, where you're here and 4 other things look so much better that you would rather do that, and you don't finish this. It's kind of like if you're trying to dig a well to find water and you dig one well that's 3 feet deep, and you're like, oh no, it's not going to be over here. Let me go over there. And you've dug like 15 wells that are 3 feet deep. If you had dug one well, all that, you would have found water. So to become an expert at something, to become masterful at something, this is when people are basically like manic and just like trying different things, trying to come to a same conclusion, okay? So I don't know if you had a chance to take the quiz, because what happens after you do that, you don't have to do it now, you can, and it specifically speaks to a mom, because that's the audience that I serve. But you can apply, especially the definitions that are on the first page, you can apply what the quiz looks like, okay? You could just just scan it from your phone. Okay, yeah. You can basically apply this and keep an eye for if this is something that's showing up in your life, and to be vigilant and to be more aware about this, okay? Once you submit, it's gonna send you a result. It's gonna send you what's your strongest Qareen trait. And then it'll like, so you'll have an idea. You might have an idea already based on the description I provided you that what kind of your specific Qareen trait is the strongest, and that's helpful. Okay, so for me, my top three were perfectionist, overzealous, and impulsive. Extremely high. That's why I was burnt out. Trying to do everything to perfection, trying to do everything all the time, and trying to do uh, the highest quality thing, and constantly working on. And when I kind of rein that in, that's when like I started sensing fulfillment in my current life, started being present with my family, started being present with for my hobbies that actually rejuvenate me. So this becomes very important to just for your mental health in general. Okay, the reason I'm telling you all of this is how you're going to provide compassionate parenting based on this paradigm. And that is that you're gonna, when you sense that you're becoming angry, and when you sense that you're becoming judgmental, you are gonna remember that this is not you. Your inner soulful intelligence would never snap at the child, would never actually do anything to hurt the child. And then how do you bridge the gap between these two intelligences when you're dealing with a real life scenario unfolding? Okay, so I'm going to give you a few examples. Let me just grab a water. Okay. What's gonna happen? So let's say there's a situation and your kid is throwing a tantrum in the playground. And you're standing there, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. What are the people gonna think? People think I can't even like control my child. Like, what do you mean? Like, can you stop? And when you go into this ajala, this state of unrest, this state of discombobulation, that should be your immediate red flag that shaitan's active. And it's not calling you to major sin. Like, it's not calling you to rob a bank because you're having financial difficulty. It's not calling you to look at the opposite gender just because you're not quite married yet. It's not calling you to major sins because it knows that you have enough to know that, oh, this is shaitan, this is something I can catch right away. It's calling you in much more insidious ways, because if you handle that child in a way that breaks their trust in you, then that's shaitan's job done. If you handle that child in a way where you're worried more about the people that are witnessing this event compared to what makes you a present mother, what does this child need in this moment, shaitan's won. So that whatever you come up with in that situation, even, and I know you know how to conclude how each situation is going to transpire, because you've lived life long enough on this planet to know how things will turn out. And when you've been falling for this trap versus when you're actually like reined in, you've thought about it, you come up with a better thoughtful answer, thoughtful reaction to the situation compared to knee-jerk reaction. So I can give you multiple examples of how neuroscience differentiates this. This is the amygdala response, is your primal response. This is the nafsi response. This is the shaitan response. The prefrontal cortex is the soulful intelligence. This is what allows you to observe yourself. This is what allows you to make choices between the reactions you want to choose in each situation. Like neuroanatomy, every single thing has evidence supporting this theory. Okay, so when you are doing a compassionate parenting technique, all you have to do is step back and be like, how would my soulful intelligence respond to this? Okay. So I don't have time currently to go into the soulful intelligence strengths, and we compare that a lot in my program, and we strengthen them, we give them more language, we give them more airtime, we give them more strength in our lives. So it becomes literally like a full-time job, at least in the beginning. Because the way neuroplasticity works is, if you've been on a downward spiral, let's say it's just related to your parenting, then to pause that level of response, you would have to rewire your brain, which it sounds like it's very difficult, but literally studies have shown that if you stick somebody in an fMRI where they've been responding with their amygdala most of their life, to come up with most of their primordial intelligence. The brain structures change, it takes 6 weeks. And if it's a very, very inherent belief, like your core belief, something that you've been living with since childhood, maybe if you work on that just one belief, it'll take you 21 days of practice. Or maybe it'll take you longer. Everyone's different. But in 21 days to 6 weeks, you can see actual physiologic changes in the brain. So your inner intelligence is constantly intact. And I'm just gonna maybe talk for 10 more minutes and then we'll open it for question and answers. So again, remembering that shaitan is acting on us in much more insidious ways. And so I have some examples. Let's say your child has a speech delay and so this is the circumstance, okay? Look, this is as your father is unfolding in your life. This is not something you can do anything about. This is just what you're dealing with. So you will have ideas like, oh, she's never going to catch up. Oh, their future is limited. Oh, I don't have the resources to support them. And without realizing, you're going to limit the resources. Without realizing, you're going to lower your expectations. You're going to stop stretching your thinking that helps support them. And you're going to make your original thought come true, which is basically the loop that we run through. Meaning we're living our life through these shaitanic whispers that don't sound shaitanic, but they're Qareen's whispers. And then we generate a result in our life. And then we say, oh, look, this is my qadar. And we say, oh, this was fate. How do you know your child is not gonna learn anything if you put them in speech therapy? The only reason you're not going to explore those options, especially living in the West, the only reason you're not going to explore all the options that you have available is if you're also like working with a boxed view. You're having a tunnel vision because shaitan says nothing is going to work. This is it. And you stop exploring options. Maybe it is not speech therapy. Maybe they'll learn through typing. Maybe they will be a digital intelligence. And you just won't have that presence of mind when you're entrapped in the shaitan's whispers. So, and when that happens, when you are unable to provide for them the way a present mother needs to, like a mother who is completely in her soulful intelligence, then what will come true is that they will be behind in their communication. And then you thought that this was because they were diagnosed with a speech delay. And it's not. It's how you interact with that circumstance. So the same thing, let's say your child says, I no longer believe in Islam. And your Qareen whispers, you failed. Fix this immediately. And there's immediate panic. And there's immediate catastrophizing and like this panic state that you're in. You're gonna not be able to understand what compassion looks like. Maybe it's nothing you can do. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open their heart. Maybe the truth will become apparent to them in different ways, as long as you stay in your soulful intelligence. If you lose your marbles, if you say, no, you don't have any room in my life, like you're dramatic and you're like very, then they are going to be like, yeah, this is not for me. And look at this person that's supposed to be following their religion, look how they're treating me. And I'm not saying that you don't set boundaries. You just can't be reactive. You just can't be in that state of unrest, which in the psychology world is called dysregulation, meaning your choice is gone. You don't understand how you can respond other ways. You just see one way. You see your way or the highway. And that's what you just allow to unfold in your life. So the difference between dysregulation and regulation, the difference between you knowing that you are working from your nafsi qualities and shaitan is winning versus your soulful intelligence is that you will see a choice in the matter. You will understand that, oh, I have made it mean that I was a bad mother. I have made it mean that my child doesn't have any future opportunities. I had made it mean, and that's one of the million meanings that are possible. And you're gonna know what your choice is. That's one of the biggest signs that you are in your inherent fitrah. Okay. So the difference between reactive and compassionate parenting is as believing Muslims, alhamdulillah, that we're attending this talk in a mosque, is between the two states of being, between two emotional states that you are responding to your life with, the bridge between the two is remembrance of Allah. When you are in a state of ajala, when you are in a state of unrest and dysregulation, pause and remember Allah with whatever shape or form you think is best for you. It could be a name of Allah, it could be a surah, it could be a dhikr, it could be anything. Like there's no limitation. All it needs to do is separate you from the circumstance long enough that you start seeing a choice. That you start seeing, oh, I do have this and this and this that I can do. And to me, embodied dhikr, embodied worship, that's the essence behind that. And we go through a lot of motions through our worship, especially through our obligated worship. And that has a time and a place, and how much reward you're getting, I can't guess. It's only between you and Allah. But when you go through embodied, relaxed, very somatic level of worship, it helps you see the difference between when you are falling into your animalistic tendencies and when you are reacting from your highest, more primordial intelligence. Okay. The reason it is very important is because a whisper is a thought that creates an effect in your body, which is your emotion, that affects your behavior, which is how you deal with people, which is what creates relationships. So like I'm taking it to the root of the root cause. We have a lot of modalities currently that affect the behavior. That because actually, believe it or not, that's the only thing that people can measure. Because if you are to come to positive psychology, to the world of current allopathic medicine, where experiments have to be proven and the outcomes have to be demonstrated, the only thing you can do is through behavior. So we're very, very fixated on the behavior part of it. The behavior has so many more layers behind it. Before you act like something, you're feeling something, and before you feel something, you're thinking something, and before you think something, you understand that that thought has an origin of one or two places. And that makes such a huge difference in your life. So having dhikr of Allah, having embodied worship to help you bridge the gap between the primal and the primordial self. So like if your child forgets chores for the 5th time this week and you're like, oh my God, and you're like, like there's all of this. And I can't tell you if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Like looking at the face value, I can't, like, you have to gauge what origin of thought you're acting from based on the result you created, based on if that behavior brought you closer to your child or if it took you further apart. If that behavior got you closer to the goal you were looking for, which is to help them do more chores, or if it took you further away from that. If your goal brought you closer to the overall goal that you're trying to live by, your highest values in this life. Anything that brings you away from that, and it's not an immediate effect. It takes you some foresight. It takes you some, oh, this happened, this is what I was thinking, this is what I was feeling, this is what I acted like, and this is the result that happened. Oh, and then you backtrack like, okay, no, that's not what I was supposed to do. And this is why istighfar goes a long way. If you were in the wrong, just correct yourself and change the input, inshallah. So I had promised you in the beginning that there is a difference between compassionate parenting and gentle parenting and permissive parenting, where permissive parenting is everything is allowed and what do you want me to do? Like they're their own child, like I can't control them. Yeah, that's true. You can't control them, but you can influence them. You can guide them. And that is true prophetic leadership quality, which is the Prophet ﷺ led with by example. He came with a message, but he left it on the followers to believe in that message. There is no force, there's no coercion, there was no emotional manipulation, there's no blame, there's no victimhood, none of that. So when you let's say the child hasn't done their chores and now you're in a position where you're like, I don't know how this is going to work. And you enforce that rule. Like, there is no dinner for you at the table unless you are, unless you finish the chore, or there's no screen time for you, or you're grounded until you do the chore. And the child obviously retaliates depending on, especially if you take the screen away from these children. Have you seen how they react? It's a bit of a dramatic reaction. So you have to like be ready for this. You have to brace yourself because that's coming. Now, compassionate parenting does not say that you don't allow them to be uncomfortable. Of course, they're not going to want to do the dishes. Of course, they're not going to want to wake up for Fajr. Of course, they're going to be like, no, like this is not what we do. We have all of these other ways that we do things. And your responsibility is knowing what you know is heard from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what your values in your household are, and then enforcing, and I say that in a quote, enforcing that in a way they most likely are going to be in a state of ajala themselves, because each child develops the same neurocircuitry, especially through young adulthood. Okay, so like a child that's 2 years old is completely innocent, but once they grow older and they go through the experience of the life more and more, that the nafsi quality develops and the shaitan gets anchored in, and then just like you develop personality traits, the specific unique shaitan for you develops personality traits, and it knows how to manipulate you. The same thing is happening for your child. Once you start to recognize that state in you, then you can recognize, oh, my child is going through that, and you can provide them compassion. You can provide them the support. You can provide them respect. Wow, you are really sad right now. Let me give you a hug. Wow, you're really angry right now. Let me remove this bottle so you don't throw it at me. Like, you keep yourself safe. You keep them safe. You allow them to go through their state, knowing that this is the part of life. Like, I'm going to experience intense emotions. There's going to be intense positive emotions. There's going to be intense negative emotions. If you yourself are not grounded as a mother because you don't know this framework, then you're not going to be able to support them. Compassionate parenting does not mean that you don't enforce. Again, I say that in air quotes because there is an art and a skill to that, which is what I'm just discussing. Compassionate parenting does not mean that you can't enforce your rules. It just means that you support them when they are having that withdrawal. Because again, if that screen is taken away and that they're on their 3rd hour of the day and they're very much into that game and you're like, nope, this is not happening anymore, they will throw a tantrum. And some kids implode, some kids explode, some kids, everyone has a different reaction. Your responsibility is to be compassionate, present, respectful for their reaction, that they are their own human being and this is what they're learning, and supporting them. What that teaches them is that intensity does not mean reactivity. And this, your basic grounded presence coming from your highest soulful intelligence is what's going to describe the difference between if they learn that or if they start to identify more and more with their Qareen. Like, how many times do we see, or who do we say, oh my God, I'm a recovering perfectionist, I have so many perfectionistic tendencies. It's not you. Your one true identity does not call you for that. It's not you. Your one true identity is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and is pure, and it's yeah. So one other thing that I wanted to mention is especially in women, when it comes to people-pleasing tendencies, you don't notice that. You think that it's only happening with, let's say, your in-laws or your husband or your colleagues, because you're afraid to say something that's like, oh, I don't want to work four weekends in a row. Like, what are you talking about? You're not going to do that. Like, oh my God, if I say that, then I might lose my job and then I might not get the promotion. And then you catastrophize and you think and more, and you stay in this people-pleasing mode where you're completely spent. And maybe, yes, you don't want to work the 4th weekend in a row, and you go to your colleague or your boss and be like, listen, I don't know who's making this schedule, but I don't want to work 4th weekend in a row. Then you are not responsible for their discomfort. Okay? So your responsibility is not to help them feel better. Your responsibility is, I actually cannot work. Like, I would love to help you, but this is not happening. we notice that in adult relationships. What mothers are not noticing right now, which is why we're in a lot of trouble, is we have people pleasing tendencies towards our children. We take responsibility for their discomfort, and their discomfort is coming from their own mind. Your responsibility to show it to them, and your responsibility is to be there for them through that discomfort. Just because they're reactive, just because they're disrespectful, you do not have to stoop to that ground. You don't have to fall into your own state of ajala or dysregulation to be able to parent them through that. So compassion does not mean free reign. Compassion does not mean people pleasing. I had a client who said, I have a 11-year-old and he's very strong and he's very big for his age, and I'm afraid to take his screen away because he'll throw things at me. Okay, so what are you going to do if that happens? Like, how are you going to contain the situation? Do you want to call your husband in? Do you want to take the screen and lock the door and run from there until he calms down? Like, what are your possibilities? If you don't want to make him uncomfortable, because as soon as you take the screen away, he has this explosive, aggressive behavior, what is that teaching him? That's what's going to continue to happen all throughout his relationships. Anytime something that's not pleasing to him, or that's not comfortable to him, he's going to act like that. If you're truly threatened by his physical presence, especially these boys, alhamdulillah, they grow so fast. And like, if you're truly afraid of his presence, how are you gonna make yourself safe? How are you gonna? And when you slow down to ask those questions, your soulful intelligence answers them for you. And she gave me, literally in a matter of the next 3 minutes, you came up with like 5, 6, 7 more ideas of how she could do that. And she's like, oh yeah, I didn't even realize that's what I was doing, and it's so easy. Yeah, it is easy, because what you're doing is you're not taking responsibility for other person's discomfort, even if it's your child. Again, this is the people-pleasing tendency, the conformist tendency of the Qareen that does that. Okay, so those are all the major points that I wanted to make. Let me know if you have any questions, concerns, musings. Heavy topic, I know. There's like this.
Something that we don't talk about, the Koreans, do we ever talk about it? Like growing up, I've never heard it now. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I have.
Yeah, like that's the first thing Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, as soon as the baby is born, it's injected into you. How many evidence you have of this entity, and how come we're not talking about it?
Then when do children, like, at what age they're innocent until, and then what time does the Qareen starts to?
So there is no date, like after this date or after this timeline. Just the same way accountability is established in Islam, that's how you know that you are able to differentiate between the two. So if somebody who is not aware of this framework, you're not like, then, and there are a lot of ways that people are coming to the same conclusion, and of course this has Islamic basis, but so accountability in Islam is through puberty, right? When you have more of a choice in the matter. That's the time when our prefrontal cortex develops. This is what helps us observe ourselves rather than be reactive to our reality. Then we can observe our reality, and then we can choose between the reactions that we want to the reality. And as when that develops is when this accountability is held responsible. And the force of the Qareen is just is developing along with it.
There's no way to do Korean on our sites, right?
Oh, so the Prophet ﷺ said, so one of the companions asked, so Ya Rasulullah, so because he was talking about it, he's like, everyone has a Qareen, and the companion said, oh, you too, Ya Rasulullah? He's like, yeah, I do too, but my Qareen doesn't call me for harm. My Qareen has accepted Islam in some narrations. So that means that his, in the history of humanity, the Prophet's Qareen was the only one that didn't allow for. Yeah, I wish, right?
No,
That's our struggle, but that's our. Yeah.
April is to be more open to us, and like as a parent, instead of going to other people or other things. Why don't they come to us first?
So I do think that there is a little bit of a controller technique happening here. You can't make your kids do anything. You can't. you cannot make your kids do anything. Let's just make our peace with that, because there's that dictator quality coming in, as if you could somehow manipulate the psychology or the house environment or something that will make them do things. You can't do that, especially if they're grown. You can, again, lovingly influence them. You can lead by example, which is why it is extremely important that you are solid on your deen. So when somebody is asking you, why do you do hijab? Why aren't you shaking hands with men? Why aren't you like following this, that, and the other? So you have a solid reason that this is why. This is why I do this. I do this as an act of ibadah. This is because I'll be held responsible on the day of judgment. Like, you are doing your performances, you're doing your acts of worship, the transactional acts of worship. Again, I don't want to say anything bad about that, but those are supposed to help influence your character refinement. They're supposed to help you believe more and more solidly. So the only thing you can do with your children is lead by example and influence them. If they don't want to come to you, they won't. The most beautiful part of this is when you are this non-attached to their to their reaction of coming to you, they will be attracted to you. This is this talent of non-attachment, where you make dua, you leave everything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you make the proper action, but you're not clinging to this outcome. You're not like hanging your hat to this outcome. And you're like, I've done my part. I've made dua with sincere heart. I've taken the action. And if it happens, great. If not, that's also with Allah. We do a lot of this. There's a lot of our culture that has to do with taking responsibility for other people's emotions. Or when you get married, your husband will make you happy, or you're supposed to make your husband happy. And like, it doesn't work like that. Like, you coming into a relationship and trying to be the version that your husband wants you to be, or he wants to become what you want to be, just so you can. It's so Hollywood and it's so ingrained that it's like, it doesn't work, because then you're not you, and you would sometimes gladly do things that would make him happy. Like, I would gladly watch a basketball game if that's what he wants to do. Oh my God, is that torture? But I would do that. Like, I don't want to, but I would do that knowing that I'm not doing it to make him happy. He is happy because of his own internal reaction to my reaction. You're never taking responsibility for the other person. And this type of ownership takes you away from this enmeshment that we're living currently. It's like you're living a very enmeshed life. And he hates traveling, but he travels because he knows it makes me happy, and I'm happy that he's there, and I'll do things that he wants me to. Like, you can make these personal sacrifices in the name of Allah. You can do self-sacrifice, that, oh, this is my value. I want to serve in this relationship. I want this relation to be strong, and this is how I want to show up in this relationship. But you're never doing it because you're responsible for their outcome or their emotions. You're doing it because you are of your own choice. And that's extremely liberating. And I sense this heaviness in the room, but once you put this into practice, it becomes extremely liberating. It is so liberating, alhamdulillah, that you'd be like, why didn't I learn this before?
And like identifying the type of Qareen you have helps you react in a different way.
Yeah, because it makes you aware.
So the Qareen is not evolving with you, right? The Qareen is just.
So the Qareen only has as much power over you as you give it.
Okay.
And your soulful intelligence is only strong when you can become aware of it, pinpoint it, and be like, nope, you belong over there. You don't have any room over here. We're gonna act like this. So the Qareen evolving in a sense that it's not maturing, because that's a jinn shaitan, and it's nothing that we have to be like afraid of. Like, you don't like have to go to sleep with the lights on tonight. Just
Okay. I've heard a little too much about that.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of looking in the mirror.
SubhanAllah. No, that's not the outcome we want. So believe it or not, that's been dictating your life all along.
No,
you might as well. No, I know. No, I want to address that, because that's the extreme sometimes that the mind goes, that let's not explore the hidden. Let's not go over there, because that might be dangerous. And accept once we identify that, who is the bigger power? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all of this. That helps us. Oh my God, I almost slipped into that again. Not gonna happen. I'm gonna catch that and I'm gonna be over here in remembrance of Allah. And Allah has control over everything, including the jinn Qareen that He promised in the Quran will be your companion.
So are there dhikrs that you can?
So I mentioned that whatever your favorite, anything that
specific-
brings remembrance of Allah in your mind. Yeah. And there's a lot of ways, like a lot of scholars will tell you what to do and how many times to do it and where to do it and whatever works for you. So again, I don't have the background in Islamic scholarship, but I don't, again, that's not a barrier for me because I remember Allah in the way that I think.
Is it always one Qareen, or I feel as if it's all of them? Huh?
Yeah. So technically, it is one, because that's again our tradition tells us that. It has different expressions. Kind of like you have different expressions, like you are not the same with your boss as you are with your mother, or as you are like you have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's the same way with that. So the 12 is what I've kind of boiled it down to help us recognize, because these are the most common struggles that we go through. So yeah, it could be it's each own. So like when it comes to married couples, because like Shaitan Iblis sits on the throne in the ocean and all of the little jinn Qareen come and they're asking him, okay, what did you do? Oh, you didn't do any good. What did you do? You didn't do any good. Oh, I created a strife between a husband and a wife. Okay, you sit in my throne. You getting the it's one individual Qareen for each person.
And what advice would you give when, like, if they're immigrants, our perception is different, but our kids are born here, they have an American perception. Both are correct. I mean, it's not that one is good or bad. For example, for us, fun growing up was just like maybe a couple of days a year, but here it looks like fun is the main part of the life. They want to have, especially in summer vacation, some fun activity.
Oh, I love fun. I
Every
love
day.
fun. Yeah,
I
so
feel it's too much fun for them.
yeah, it's a lot of fun, huh? So a beautiful part about this framework is not culture specific. It's not even gender specific. It's not age specific. So if they want to have fun, like, do you have any like issues with that? Like, is there fun overtaking their responsibilities, especially their religious responsibilities, the way you want them to? So one part that I didn't talk about is the universal quality that every single Qareen has and all of us is judge. Meaning this Qareen creates a fault in everything. So if you're saying I grew up and I didn't have as much fun, maybe once or twice a year we'd go away for something and my kid is doing it every weekend or every other day, then that must mean there's something wrong. That's your Qareen speaking. Unless you can say that there's something wrong, as in like they're staying up all night and not able to wake up for Fajr, or they can't submit assignments and are unable to graduate because they're having so much fun, then you this is something that I'm actually going to talk about tomorrow at the MCGP Mosque. And this is this when I talk to you about these personality traits, one is stronger than the other, that falter Qareen that creates fault in everything is universal for all of us. That's one universal quality that the Qareen has. Like this is something that the Qareen stands on to then tell you that you must be afraid. This has gone wrong, you must be afraid of the future. The kids are having too much fun, you must be afraid of this, that, and the other. Then the other little personality traits come in, like the perfectionist or the analytical or the overzealous and all of that. So if you can recognize that you're coming, and inshallah come to the talk tomorrow, little preview for you. If you can recognize that you are in judgment of the situation rather than vigilance of the situation, you know you're acting from one or the other. So like going back to your question, let's find out, is there something wrong with them having too much fun? What's too much fun? Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that they can only see their friends on weekends, or they are okay to see their friends every day when they are able to, like what kind of company? What does that mean? be vigilant about the concern that you have before Qareen takes off with it. I know, that's a little distracting. Anything else? Really? Nobody? There's so many people here. So how are you going to implement this going home?
Take a pause before we have once. Yeah, which is so hard. That's so
Yeah.
hard. There's an impulse. Yeah. And then you regret. Oh my God, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
But it really depends what time of the day it is.
Yeah.
I may react better in the morning when I'm tired. I'm like,
Yeah.
buzz off everything.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's so natural. And I'm so glad you're mentioning this because this is basically the exercise of like there are a few shortening things that happen in our day. Like if it's really hot and if you're really hungry or if you worked all day and everyone's like not behaving the way they're supposed to, like your reactivity, like it's right there. And at the same time, there are a few lengthening things that you're rested and you've eaten a good meal and you're like in a good mood and it was a day off and then you react completely differently. This is all again neurologically proven. When you are in that moment of reactivity and if something does slip, I don't want you to use this framework to judge yourself harsher. Come back to your soulful intelligence. Oh, I accidentally did this. Deep breath, splash water, make dua, wudu, nafil, whatever it is that you have to do to just kind of and the biggest part of soulful intelligence that we learn is a quality called attunement, meaning you are empathic to yourself before anybody else. Like there's a lot of grace that you give to yourself when you see that especially when you're reprogramming this wiring of reactivity or yeah. And there's, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful and
what are the biggest challenges that we didn't face, but our kids are facing, and we are not aware of them? Absolutely
no idea.
I have no idea what they're going through. I mean, what our peer pressure.
Yeah, peer pressure, yeah. So, okay, so I'll talk about peer pressure. You don't feel pressure from your peers. You don't. You feel pressure because you think you'll be accepted if you do this, that, and the other, and then you internalize that, and then you do that, okay? The reason it sounds like I'm splitting hair, but this is literally makes and breaks you because what it's doing is taking responsibility from the peers to yourself. You can wear shorts if you want to under peer pressure, but it's not coming from the peer. It's coming from your choice.
Just want to fit in.
Correct.
Yeah.
You can wear a baya and feel the peer pressure of their judgment and not want to do that next time. The peers are not doing that. Your life is not doing that. People in your world are not doing that. You are creating those choices because if peer pressure made you dress immodestly, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be like, oh, you're off the hook. Let me just go ask your friend because that's the one who told you. It doesn't work like that. Why is accountability on you? Because your peer pressure is coming from your mind of I'm making this mean that if I dress this way, then I'll belong. That's your responsibility. This is so teaching the kids this is extremely important, and of course the belief in akhirah, teaching them what it is that we're aiming for and what we're going towards. That of course helps, and then teaching them to take responsibility for their own actions. And this is a very big. So in my, I coach only Muslim women, and it comes up a lot where the word qawwam by men gets used as controller a lot. And like men in their egotistical sense think that they can control a woman's choice. So if she doesn't wear hijab, they can force her to wear a hijab. If she wears a hijab, well, you're too backwards, I could force you to take the hijab off. Like they could take these responsibilities on themselves under this guise of qawwam when it's supposed to mean provider and protector. And if if a man in your life, your wali, your husband, your brother, your father, could control your choices, then what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have nothing to ask you. Like, well, you were the responsibility of this man, so please make your way to Jannah and I'll deal with this guy. That doesn't happen. That is such an illusion. They like control, you do not have control of other human beings, and other human beings do not control you. It does not happen. We are told that's how it happens. We're told this is how you live your life. This is why you're constantly like so like on the edge and constantly like trying to manipulate other people and constantly trying to like spend energy and time. It's a complete waste. It doesn't work like that. So how I would answer the peer pressure is teach them that you are making your choice and this is how I would make that choice, and give them options of the right company and show them why you want this choice, because you're teaching them the way to live a life as an adult in this world. You're teaching them how to be an adult. You're not teaching them, you're not raising a child, you're raising an adult. And giving them these choices early on, depending on their level of understanding, is what helps them make the choices, inshallah. Anything else? Okay, I'm gonna finish with the dua then. Oh Allah, help us recognize the whispers that pull us away from you and from the people we love. Oh Allah, purify our hearts, calm our souls, and return us to the fitrah you created us with. Make our homes a place of mercy, our words a source of safety, and our parenting a means of drawing ourselves and our children closer to you. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Thank you so much. Thank you.